Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, Josh. It's been a while.
It has been a while. I'm Josh, in case you forgot who I am.
And I am Austin. Because it's been... we have to redo our introductions because it's been like over a month.
Yeah.
Since we've recorded. But we are back. To the haters that thought that we had quit.
I know who you are.
Yeah.
Be honest. Haters. Come out.
Yeah.
Come talk. Say something.
Any podcast that's made it to the size of ours is bound to have some haters. So sad to say we did not quit. We're back.
Quite a following. Let me tell you. We could pull up our Spotify view numbers right now and impress the world. Let's see. Spotify for podcasters. Dashboard home. What do you think it is, Austin, on just Spotify alone?
I think we've made the big double digits, Josh. Double digits.
If you mean double as in the number 2, you'd be correct. In the last 7 days, 2 people have listened to our episodes. We have 8 Spotify followers and 61 total plays. Our most recent episode received 17 plays. So I think that's actually pretty good.
That's actually higher than I anticipated, Josh. But you do have to start at 0, as they say. That's
the laws of physics.
Yeah.
Austin, what's new with you? What's happened in your life and everything?
Yeah, relatively quiet around here. Gearing up for the cold weather. I live in a very old and ancient shack of a house, so the winter is always a challenging time. But having to do the boring adult tasks of winterizing and plugging holes in the exterior and trying to make sure we don't freeze to death over the winter. That's the main thing on my mind.
Do you put little towels around the edges of your window frames and use that little plastic screen thing?
So I've been there, definitely been down that road. I've used socks. I've been a sock in the door guy. I've done that in the past. Thankfully we got that door replaced, so I don't have to do that any longer. But
nice.
Old house, over 100 years old. It has a hot water radiator boiler heat system that doesn't really do anything except cost me money. But thankfully we got a modern ductless mini split system for the upstairs where our daughter sleeps. So the daughter stays warm. We stay warm at night when we're sleeping, but when we go downstairs in the winter, we're usually met with a frigid house. So trying to gear up for that mentally and physically. But yeah, that's been the main thing on my mind. How about you, Josh?
Yeah.
You have some updates to give us, Josh. Did you get a new car? Did we follow through with the new car?
Yes, that was on my list. I was going to a football game and I was going to buy a new car, and yes, I did both of those things. So I bought a Jeep Wrangler. I think it's the Safari edition, and it is a hybrid EV. So I get 20 miles on a battery and then the rest on gasoline.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's gray. I really like it. It's fun. It's a 2022 car, so it's slightly used, but it gets me around town. And I usually don't even have to start the engine, like the gas engine. It's just uses that battery, get home, plug her back in.
That's pretty good. And you can check your tire pressure from inside the car, I trust.
Yes, you can. Yes.
Yeah,
I'm able to check that tire pressure, and it's lovely.
How was the car buying process? Did you have to futz around with the salesman and everything, or were you able to get in and out relatively smoothly?
It was very smooth. We found a really good salesman, and he didn't yank us around at all. It gave us what we needed and was ready for us to come in and pick it up when we were saying we were going to come finish the purchase. So yeah, I was pretty happy overall.
That's the dream, just to show up to a business and exchange money for a good. That's what you want, and unfortunately that's not usually what you get when you go to a car dealership, but I'm glad you got it done.
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy. Happy with the car. We went to the football game. Iowa State won. Yep. If you're listening to this now, which is probably going to be released in a week from now, because I have to edit it. the game will have been 6 weeks ago at this point.
Yeah.
So you know that Iowa State beat Iowa. And then I went to another football game, Austin. I took my oldest son, to it with my parents in Ames. And that was really fun, too. It was very hot. But
Which game was that?
it was against...
Was it Baylor or?
I don't know. It wasn't Baylor. I don't remember, honestly. But we won because we haven't lost yet, which, again, Iowa State top 10 nationally. So we've been having a phenomenal season. Yep.
It's been a blast. I was at the Baylor game, which is why I asked. So
oh, you did.
We should have ran into each other if you were there as well. But
yeah.
Iowa State 6-0. I guess that is the other big news in my life since I'm a big Iowa State fan. They're 6-0, so I get to listen to all the podcasts and celebration and read the news and laugh at the haters online that want us to lose, but we refuse.
It is special because all football and both men's and women's basketball are ranked in the top 10, which if you would have told me that when I was in college in 2007, I would be like, what?
Yeah.
I don't think that's physically possible.
Iowa State, not a historically dominant or successful athletic program, but now in this modern era, things might be changing. They might be changing,
Could
Josh.
be. Yep. They could be. Yeah. Well, should we... Oh, new segment I told Austin about is Shoutouts.
Yeah.
We might as well front load this to get those people who don't listen to any of the tech stuff out of the way. You can sign off after this, but we wanted to shout out early listeners of the podcast. This is kind of like a early subscriber deal. So, and I went to a wedding and I had multiple people who I didn't think would have listened come up to me and said, "Hey, I listened to your podcast." It's like, no way. So here are my shout outs. My buddy Dave from the gym and my buddy Tyler from the gym. I thought there were more than that, which is why I texted you, but now I can't think of anybody else. So apparently if you are listening, if you're miffed and I haven't given you a shout out, text me. It's like, hey man, I was expecting a shout out. And I'll get you next time. Austin,
the good news is we have hundreds more episodes to do shout outs. The opportunities abound, but apparently we're big in the gym, great working out content, I guess, just because we're so high energy and we're just excited and we just get people going when they're hitting the weights, I guess.
I think one of my gym buddies said he was on a very long car ride and just couldn't listen to normal music anymore and was looking for anything else but music. So I think we fit the bill pretty well.
Of the barrel. We're not silence, that's for sure. We're not nothing.
That's true.
Shout out to my dad, number one podcast fan from the beginning. He's listened to every single one of our 3 episodes and is a faithful member of the 17 plays that we usually get. So shout out, Dad. Thanks for the support.
Yeah, Austin's dad. Oh, yeah.
Josh, correct me. We're doing these shout outs for free, right? There's no billing involved here.
I got $100 from each of mine, so maybe you should probably look into that.
I'll ask my dad for some money. I'm sure he won't be annoyed.
I remember the other two because we went to their daughter's birthday party. It was at a lovely park outside of Altoona. Abby and Madison, hello, and thanks for listening.
Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate all the support, all the dozens of listeners that we have. We need every single one of you.
Yes. Woo! All right. What are we talking about today?
Yes, Josh, we're talking about Laracon US 2024. That is kind of old news at this point, but we're going to discuss it.
It's our style, really.
We're going to follow the trend of talking about 3 months ago, the trends from 3 months ago. We're going to discuss a few of the announcements at Laracon. Josh is more of the Laravel guy than I am. I'm more of like a Laravel observer from the outside, but Josh has like actually used it in real life. So I'm curious to get some of his takes on the announcements. And maybe I can draw some comparisons to the JavaScript world, but we're gonna hit on a few of the news items from there and the exciting new developments in the Laravel world, because Laravel is definitely trending upward, I would say, Josh.
I feel like it has had a really big upward trajectory the past year and a half. I think they've gained a lot of steam, and that's really cool to see. I One of the biggest things I think we should just start with it is that not announced at Laracon, but a week afterward was that Laravel has received a rather large investment from Excel. Is that what you call it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so a lot of money. What?
Yeah, 57 million. 57 million.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
That's a large chunk of change. And Laravel, so for the uninitiated, Laravel is both an open source ecosystem and also a for-profit entity, right? And they've had both of those branches for a number of years, right, Josh? This isn't like they're just now starting to think about making money. They've been in business for a while. Is that right?
Yeah, I think there's been some important milestones along the way. In fact, so Taylor Otwell, the founder of Laravel, started. He created it, I think, over a decade ago as just an open source framework in PHP while he was working for a company, and then it was kind of a side project. Then he got hired at this company to pretty much work on it full time, and has since spun it off into a full-time business. Along the way, some of those big milestones are like the hosting solutions that came along and provided revenue for him to be able to support himself and then eventually other people. So the first was Laravel Forge, which is essentially a provisioner for your third-party virtual servers like DigitalOcean or Amazon or whatever. It'll spend and provision them for you and then help you deploy to them. And then about 5 years later, it was Laravel Vapor, which is the same thing except for just like serverless on Amazon AWS Lambda. And so like at each of those milestones, I feel like they really increased their revenue. They started hiring more people, and they had a pretty lean team, which makes sense given like the scope because it's open source, it's free for the most part. But then he started hiring all these people in the last year, and I was like, gosh, that's a lot of people. I was kind of worried because like I've seen this happen in 2021 in the tech industry, right? All these people, go on giant hiring sprees and then immediately get laid off. And so I was like, how can he afford to hire all those people? Come to find out, they'd received this big investment and they're really accelerating their growth in a few different areas. So, yeah, I'm excited to see it. Do you have any like initial feelers or takeaways on that?
Yeah, I thought it was super interesting. With Laravel being like traditionally a bootstrapped company, right? I think that's the terminology. I don't think Taylor took any funding when he started the company. It was just kind of a from scratch thing. Started on the side and then took off big enough to be his full-time gig. So this is the first time Laravel has taken funding from the VC world. So I saw a lot of excitement from within the Laravel ecosystem, as well as a number of questions anytime this large of a sum of money enters a traditionally open source and kind of scrappy bootstrapped area. There's going to be some concerns and some questions about obviously they got 57 million, and the investors are going to be looking on to the future for a return on their investment, and people wondering, does this mean Laravel open source is going to fall by the wayside in priorities, or are they going to start charging for things that they didn't charge for before? Or what does this mean, for the future? And kind of the predecessor to the funding announcement was a kind of companion product announcement at Laracon, the announcement of Laravel Cloud, which is going to be their new flagship platform as a service. So it seems like those two things kind of coinciding, where Laravel Cloud is now going to be the long-term play to try and grow and really expand that revenue, the revenue generating side of Laravel. I think those two things make sense. They've been done successfully in the past, with Heroku and now like a Vercel and an Amplify of the VC money coming in, building out the hosting platform and growing it big. But I think there are downsides and concerns with going for that approach. So Josh, as like a longtime Laravel guy, what are your first impressions of like Laravel Cloud, the announcement, and the kind of the general direction of the for-profit Laravel side.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think we probably touched on it right at the very end of the last episode, but I'm so excited for Laravel Cloud. It's what I've always wanted, is like a true like managed PHP hosting service where I just push up code and say, I'm going to want a database here, some caching here. It knows that I have a Laravel app and how to run Laravel apps, so I don't have to tell it all this stuff in like a weird Docker file or Kubernetes YAML. And then it manages the server for me, so I don't have to like constantly worry about that. So Laravel Forge is what I use now for BarkPass and for other things, and it's great. The onboarding is so nice because you log in, you say, I want a new server, and it's like, okay, from DigitalOcean, and you're like, yeah, sure. Here's how big I want it to be. And it sets everything up for you, gets all the database, everything running. It'll install cache servers for you if you want, and everything. You just, and then you can connect to GitHub thing, it downloads it, and it runs it. But the problem is, fast forward 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, all of a sudden you're on an Ubuntu version that's too old to install the latest version of Node. And you just pushed up code that has the latest version of Node, and now your deploy crashed. And so now you go, okay, well, let's upgrade Node. Oh, I can't because Ubuntu's too old. Oh, well, how do I upgrade Ubuntu? And then you go to the Ubuntu instructions, and step 1, back up your server. It's going to be offline for a while. Well, there goes my production readiness. And that type of stuff, like combined with all the potential security or weird config things or firewalls, and it's just, it's so nice having the option that's pretty much hands off, and it isn't necessarily like, doesn't require me to also set up an AWS thing like I would have to for Laravel Vapor. It's really what I've always wanted. So I'm definitely going to move to it as soon as I can, as soon as I get access. So yeah. A couple things, I think, from the business perspective. Like, what happens? Is this a huge new pile of money for Laravel? What do you think? Is it going to be like, because you remember they have 2 existing buckets of customers already. Yeah. Like, is it going to be enough of an investment to bring over those new customers, or is it going to be kind of feeding from the same pool? And not being net new from a revenue perspective.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, because and it's one I'm sure they've thought about a lot lately. I think the bet is kind of like, I think they're betting partially on like the Laravel ecosystem as a whole growing a lot. So just like getting the raw number of Laravel users to increase significantly over the next few years. And then kind of introducing this alongside that's like, hey, if you want a managed solution, we've got it, and pay, and we're happy to take your money for it. I think that like significant growth of Laravel developers in general has to kind of occur alongside the introduction of Laravel Cloud as a platform, because otherwise, like you said, you're kind of stealing from your own bucket there, driving people from Forge or Vapor over to Cloud, which I think there will still be a decent amount of people that migrate, and maybe that increases their revenue a little bit. I don't know the pricing details exactly, but I think the influx of cash in general is kind of it's kind of a bet and a show of confidence from the VCs that they think the Laravel ecosystem can rapidly expand in sheer size, and then from there you kind of try and scoop off your percentages of Laravel developers, convert them over to Cloud, and your growth goes that way.
Yeah,
which I think is a future. I think 100%. Yeah, it's a big bet on the future. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out, because the other platforms as a service that have seen success in the past are really like the JavaScript focused ones, or the more like generic web focused ones, like thinking specifically of like a Vercel, a Netlify, a Render, that kind of thing, where it's like more explicitly like wrappers over AWS Lambda specifically, and they offer some serverless functions. They offer static hosting. And that's kind of it. I know like Vercel has introduced some other like storage options more recently, but even with just offering a serverless function and static hosting, they've seen really, really significant growth over the past 5 years or so. So I think that kind of thing, it's definitely possible for it to be replicated again in the PHP ecosystem. Be curious to see how Laravel tries to position Laravel Cloud. Obviously, it's going to be Laravel first, but what other stuff do they allow? Are they going to try and make it more generic so that you can bring over your whole workload? Are they going to just keep it scoped down to the Laravel stuff and maybe hinder their possible customer base? Curious to see where it goes from there. But I think with that influx of cash and the good team they're building, I think they've got a serious chance.
Yeah, I agree. It will be interesting coming to question whether they'll expand their addressable market by opening it up to other things, making it like a Docker option, or making it smart and letting people deploy Ruby or Rails applications. I think maybe the hint is in the name. The fact that it's called Laravel Cloud means it's probably going to be scoped to Laravel. But from an economics perspective, it also sometimes makes sense to expand your market.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, just maybe like more on the details. Like you mentioned it earlier briefly, but like the differences between like Forge and Cloud, I think are kind of interesting. Like for me as an outsider, I am like a little fuzzy on exactly the differences. So like Laravel Cloud is the more turnkey solution, it sounds like, whereas Forge requires a little bit more hands-on management and setup, where it's like with Forge you're still going out to DigitalOcean, and making an account kind of thing, and you have your server over there, and you still have direct access to your server if you need to SSH in and do whatever. But Forge is kind of like a layer on top that takes care of a lot of the configuration there, whereas Cloud is more of your completely managed solution.
Exactly. Yeah, Cloud takes care of everything. Like I don't have a peek into what's going on behind the scenes. I think just saw one of those big old beetles fly past Austin.
I've been infested. I apologize for the viewers that don't want to see insects on their screen during a podcast, but that's what I'm looking at.
Listeners, just imagine it. This is the biggest beetle you can imagine flying around Austin's room. We'll keep a count of how many go past today.
Yeah.
I think what they've probably got going on behind the scenes at Laravel Cloud is like a Kubernetes cluster or clusters. And so they're spinning up when you deploy, they'll build an image for your app and really quickly, apparently, and then drop it into a Kubernetes instance with some replicas. And the key is that they can scale down to 0, which is, I think, a huge win, especially for like hobby projects, of which there are going to be tons for Laravel developers. And then scaling up, so it can create multiple replicas and probably have like a knob to turn to make your site run faster if you want to scale up versus lower if you don't anticipate much traffic. So that's kind of like the serverless, aspect that everyone's used to. So I don't have to worry about scaling because it handles it for me. That's kind of the solution there. It handles upscaling and downscaling on its own. So that will be huge.
Yeah. So it's not like true serverless in the sense that it's like running on Lambda, right? It's like it has like the scaling to 0 property of serverless, but you're still spinning up a whole Docker, right? When your app is running. Yeah.
Except you don't even have to think about Docker,
right?
So it's just there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Another interesting aspect he showed off was the serverless databases. He showed during the demo a serverless Postgres setup where you go in and say, I want a database. This is the name. And I think within like 5 seconds, it was provisioned and ready to use, which is super cool. Like normally you're thinking, I got to spin up this database instance, get it all set up. But that is incredibly powerful. I hope that like they offer MySQL as well, in addition to just Postgres.
Mm-hmm.
But I assume the Postgres thing is backed by something in AWS that is that offering. Yeah, I because I'm just personally selfishly wanted MySQL because that's what I built my app on. So
yeah, I thought that was interesting that they were going Postgres first with this platform, because I think traditionally PHP and MySQL are kind of there it is again.
2.
We're up to 2. Oh,
3.
3.
Another the third bug sighting for those of you paying attention.
Those counting at home. But yeah, I think that it's kind of been PHP and MySQL, are like BFFs in that world. I thought it was interesting that Postgres went first. I think you're probably right. It has something to do with the underlying infrastructure, if they're using like Aurora on AWS or something, just to get that out of the box. Yeah, so like maybe at like a broader like business perspective level, the 57 million raise, like what did you have any concerns when you saw that with the Laravel announcement, or was it just like pure excitement, like this is great to have an influx of cash, or was there any worries of like now we've got a lot of money in the ecosystem, like what's going to happen from here?
I was mainly purely excited. I'm not one of those who's worried about Taylor and the company suddenly like being nefarious and saying, all right, let's lock down the stuff that we've already offered for free. I think if you look at the things that Laravel provides for free out of the box, it's already well known that it's just like ridiculous value. And they've already provided so much for free that if they start introducing more paid products, I think that's fine. Like they have they will be announcing a new thing at Laracon AU, and it's probably going to be an alternative to like Datadog, Honeycomb, Sentry, probably for observing and monitoring. I will pay so much money for that. I hate doing this and wiring it up. I was doing it last night, trying to wiring up my Nginx and all my logs, and it's such a mess. The world of observability just is a mess right now. And so take my money, build something that's going to work perfectly for my Laravel application. And so that's the type of stuff, like that stuff is very hard to build. The Laravel Cloud stuff is very hard to build. You got to hire a lot of people who are really good. And so it makes sense. The 57 million makes sense. I think the only thing I'm worried about is like, are they going to get pressure from investors? Like if I were Taylor, I'd be like, gosh, how am I going to match the expectations for revenue from this thing? And how quickly, what's your burn rate on that? Am I going to be able to even make enough money on these new products to pay payroll before this 57 million runs out? Because that'll go pretty quick with every developer you hire that runs pretty fast. So that's the only concern I have. How about you?
Kind of as an outside observer, I thought it was interesting to kind of see the reaction on Twitter from both the Laravel insiders and the outsiders. Obviously, I think from the Laravel folks, it was just a lot of excitement, really pumped to see what Laravel Cloud can become, as well as this new product that they're going to announce, and seeing what a team that has a proven track record of doing really great stuff can do with all these new resources. Obviously, I think that's one of the biggest like votes of confidence for Taylor is just his track record. He's been doing this for a long time. He's been proven to want to do right by the open source community, but also in a sustainable way. So he has a reputation that I don't think he's just taking this and running to, taking the investment and going to Barbados or something to retire. I think he's right. No, he clearly wants to make this work, and then he has a good track record. I thought it was interesting, like some of the outsiders. I saw a few comments of like they felt like folks in like the PHP and Laravel ecosystem had disparaged the like VC funded hosting path, like that of a Vercel or Netlify, where it's like, why do you need all this money in hosting and all the money's in JavaScript and they're just doing this so that they can sell you Lambda a 10x markup, which maybe that's coming more from the Rui community now, the Rails community now than the Laravel one. But I saw a few comments in that realm where it's like, they always laughed at Vercel and now they're turning into Vercel. And I think there's kind of there might be a point there. I think we're gonna have to see how it plays out. The obvious difference with Laravel is that Laravel started open source, then started a bootstrap company, and is now, 10 years down the road of being a successful and profitable company, and now it's trying to make a bigger bet. Whereas like the Next.js and Vercel analog is they started together basically, and the framework developed alongside the hosting company. And I don't really want to go down that. I don't really want to go down that road right now about whether the framework has influenced the hosting company or the hosting company has influenced the framework. But I think there is an interesting question there, and only time will tell. Only time will tell how it's going to shake out. But I do think Taylor has the reputation to back up his word in saying that the framework and the open source side is going to stay the same while they try and follow through on this big bet with the business side.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think Next.js predated now, or I guess Zeit, and then returned to Vercel, but in memory it was not it was not the 10 plus years that Laravel has, right?
Yep.
And I think the a lot of the criticism you hear of Vercel and Next is that it's a lot of the features in Next.js, like incremental static revalidation and like the edge compute runtime, and all the kind of bells and whistles that you get in the Next framework with the abstractions they provide. A lot of those are designed around the assumption that they're kind of running in a Vercel type environment. They have opened up like the whole, I forget what they call it, like the build SDK or whatever, if you want to provide support for your framework on Vercel to do the same, and vice versa. But it does feel kind of coupled. I think it'll be telling if Laravel, 3 years from now, all of a sudden new features in Laravel are like insanely complex and happen to just work if you use the Laravel Cloud. I don't think that's ever going to happen, just because of the DNA of the company is just as simple as possible. Just run it on your server anywhere. But yeah, I think if that does happen, then people will be right to listen to the critics. We'll see.
I think it's an interesting question too, because it does, like the idea of like framework tied to hosting, it doesn't always have to be like this like really nefarious idea where like Guillermo is like sitting up in his dark tower, like how can we make it impossible for people to move off of Vercel? Like it doesn't have to be like this premeditated thing. Like it can also be the idea of like how can we make the framework have the smoothest and best possible developer experience. And if you can make some assumptions about where the framework is going to be hosted, you can make a lot of things really easy. And then maybe a few years down the road, you look back and some people say, oh, well, you're just tying the framework to hosting so that you can make a bunch more money, when at the time you were more thinking about the developer experience. Like, I think there's two sides to that coin. But I think you're probably right in that. I think Laravel will try to shy away from framework and hosting integrations as much as possible, just because they have a strong track record of supporting the open source stuff and prioritizing it. So yeah, again, only time will tell, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out.
For sure. So I think there's two other things that I definitely wanted to hit on. From Laracon. One was the VS Code plugin announcement, and the other is the announcement for Inertia, like V2, which is like kind of it was not an overhaul, but some like big, brand new, much needed features. The VS Code thing, what do you think of that?
I thought that was huge. As an outsider, Laravel outsider, I have tried to pick up Laravel a few times, and I think this is going to be really big for newcomers to the framework, right? Like if you're trying to pull in the really big audience of developers that are in the JavaScript ecosystem or the web ecosystem, VS Code is by far the dominant text editor, right? So making that story as good as possible, as smooth as possible for new developers, I think is only going to help grow grow the ecosystem. And I think the folks working on that are smart and know what good DX looks like. So I'm really excited for it to come out just as a user and as someone that wants to jump more into Laravel. I think it's going to make things a lot easier, because I don't want to pay for PHP Storm or whatever, and I'm not going to use Sublime Text. I mean, respect to the people that are using Sublime Text out there, but I need a little more.
Yeah, I'm so pumped for it too. I've tried to download PHP Storm before, and it's great because I think it knows it's designed for PHP, but it lacks all of the polish and usefulness of VS Code that I'm used to now. Cursor, I guess, but it's just well needed too. If you're a developer right now in Laravel using VS Code, you probably have an extension called PHP IntelliFence, which is spelled INTELLIPHENSE, which is a spin of IntelliSense, of which there is a PHP IntelliSense, but the IntelliFence one is better. And it's made by, I think, a single person, and the website is just like a random kind of static page. And it offers a lot out of the box as far as like recognizing your Laravel models and such, but there is a paid premium version, which you buy online. It's so cheap. It's like $19 or something one time. And it gets you everything else, like rename symbol support and like proper LSP, and everything that you really want for doing anything with PHP in your editor, and then you have to just paste in the license code. But it's like updated a little bit, and otherwise it's a black box. Like you can't see how it's working because it's a premium thing. You can't provide fixes for new things that come out, so there's always like a lag when there's a new feature in Laravel. So I'm just so excited for this, because I also have like 4 other VS Code plugins to like format Blade templates and provide like command clicking, hyperlinking to Blade snippets and everything. And like, I think all that's going to be taken care of, plus even stuff that is not possible today. So excited for that. Pumped.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. And I think like it's kind of an interesting theme of like a lot of developer experience expectations that were pioneered in like the JavaScript, TypeScript tooling space, kind of spreading around to other ecosystems, whether it's like the one-click deploy with Laravel Cloud, or whether it's a really helpful and rich VS Code extension, to where when I first opened a Laravel project in VS Code, like I expected to be able to hover over stuff and get info about it. I expected to be able to command click. I wanted autocomplete on stuff just because that's what I'm used to in the JavaScript ecosystem. So it was a little jarring not having that. It made me feel a little naked. So it's going to be really nice to have that piece of the puzzle just slotted in.
Yep. And then the other thing was Inertia. Inertia is a, what do you call it, Austin?
I think they call it a protocol. The Inertia
protocol. Yeah, that's interesting, because I thought it was maybe like a framework, but it's just a protocol. It like bridges the gap between Laravel, like server PHP classes and models and controllers, and your like front end framework, like a Remix or a React or Vue, Svelte. It provides really handy ways to effectively serialize your stuff and connect, I think, handle routing altogether as well in your single page app architecture. So I don't remember all the announcements there, but what were some of them?
Yeah, so they were talking about Inertia 2.0, right, specifically. So Inertia's been out for a little while. And I think so they had a number of features like deferred props and infinite scrolling and asynchronous stuff that they were just making better in Inertia. I think like more of the overarching thing that I took away from it was that Inertia is getting investment from the Laravel side, right? So like I think Joe Tannenbaum helped work on it, who is a full-time employee at Laravel. So Laravel is pitching back in with their newfound resources to help kind of improve and help steward that project, which I think is big. I don't know if we've talked about Inertia before, Josh, but I think maybe this is an Austin hot take, but I think like Laravel and Inertia is probably the best way to make an app in 2024. Maybe this might be a hot take. I don't know, but as a JavaScript guy specifically, like if I was going to sit down and build like a SaaS or something serious, I would pick up Laravel and Inertia definitely. Even though I've hardly ever used Laravel, just because you get the full power of a battle tested backend framework like Laravel that has actually everything useful and helpful that you need to build an app. And then you can pair it with your powerful front end framework of choice, like a React or a Vue, and get everything from that ecosystem as well. Whether it's your Radix, your headless UI, your React Aria, your Framer Motion, any of those pieces of the ecosystem that I think are what makes the JavaScript frameworks so valuable. You get the best of both worlds, basically. So I think Inertia plus Laravel is going to be the best way to build an app right now.
Yeah.
And Inertia 2.0 just makes it better. I don't know. Maybe that was an impromptu hot take, but those are my feelings.
Well, it's about time for our hot take section.
Yeah.
I somewhat agree with your hot take. I think, if you're looking to build a certain type of app, which does require a lot of front end and interactivity, then it probably is the correct way to go instead of like a standalone like Next.js or Remix type of situation. I think like there's a lot to be said about those Radix and headless UI things. Just so makes doing really complex interactive UI so easy and bulletproof. Whereas I love Livewire. I would use Livewire probably 9 times out of 10 and not reach for a front end framework. But there are some pitfalls and shortcomings when you want to have that really, really advanced UI stuff, which I wrote about in kind of my state of productive front end frameworks post a while back. But yeah, I agree. My biggest takeaway was for that to be that Laravel is investing in Inertia before I think it still is a standalone like third party framework, which didn't necessarily receive a lot of attention from Laravel. And I think Laravel has leaned into Livewire a lot and supported that quite a lot. And now I think Inertia the same. So it's good to see. I think it's going to attract even more folks to the framework, especially if they are coming from the JavaScript world. And it's I think it's just a win for everybody. So
100%. Because I think Inertia was started back in the day by Jonathan Rennick.
Yeah.
Does that sound right? Rennick, which I think he works at Tailwind now, or maybe he used to work at Tailwind.
Co-founded Tailwind, or
Tailwind,
co-founder for a while or something.
Yeah, so he was not like in the Laravel org or like company. I thought that was an interesting development that Laravel was contributing time from one of their employees to help contribute to that open source project that it's not even first party technically, but it's kind of de facto first party now. Yes. Yeah. Cool. I don't know. Did you have anything else you wanted to hit on from Laracon or Laravel world stuff?
No. I'm sure there was some fun stuff, but I think we've covered some of the biggest things, honestly. And I'm pumped for Laravel Cloud to come out, and I'm pumped for the VS Code plugin to come out, and the new unannounced observability tool. So all around A+. Good job, Laravel.
Good job, Laravel. Laravel's going. It's gonna be a rocket ship in the next few years, hopefully. I think I could see the ecosystem growing pretty significantly, especially with the new investment, the new power team of employees they're building. I think if you want to be a Laravel person, now is the time to jump on.
Yep, do it. What do we call this section where we say not shoutouts, but cool things?
Cool things, good stuff, whatever.
Good stuff. My cool thing this week is a TV show. We watch a lot of TV here at the Larson House. It is called Nobody Wants This, and it is on Netflix, starring Kristen Bell and Adam Brody. It's a romantic short. Each episode is short. It's like 10 episodes. It's romantic comedies type of thing. So if you're looking for a fun watch, go for it. You'll enjoy it. You'll get some laughs too.
It's a good recommendation. I'm always on the lookout for more TV, and it sounds like the Larson household has a refined palate when it comes to media. So I should hit you up for more recommendations sometime.
Please do.
My good thing, cool thing this week is Coke Zero. Coca-Cola Zero sugar. I've reached the bottom of one here. Get a little ice in the microphone there.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
As I've flown past my high school and college ages, I've had to pay a little bit more attention to what I'm eating, what I'm drinking, the amount of sugar I'm intaking, and I've always been a soda guy, always been a pop guy, if you will.
Yep.
And you're drinking a lot of calories if you're drinking pop regularly. So
yep.
I had to make the difficult decision to switch to diet. I've always hated diet pop. But I tried Coke Zero for the first time this year, and my eyes were opened. I don't know if it's just because I am getting older or because it's always been this good, but an ice cold Coke Zero, it hits like nothing else. I gotta say, it hits like nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Josh and Austin Figure It Out. It's brought to you by Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola Zero sugar.
Zero sugar. So you don't like Diet Coke, but you do like Coke Zero?
I hate Diet Coke. I think it tastes terrible. Personally,
I don't know why they made a different type. Aren't they effectively the same thing?
No, it couldn't be more different.
Huh.
Diet Coke, it doesn't taste anything like Coke. It doesn't have a Coke flavor. It just tastes like aspartame. It just tastes like fake. I don't know. It's bad. It is bad. Whatever it is. Coke Zero tastes like Coke. It's delicious.
Yes, I do. I drink soda from time to time. Maybe like one can a day of like diet type of soda. Sometimes, but I mainly drink it for I've never said it out loud before, but aspartame.
Yeah.
Which is just replaced all the sugar and is going to give us all cancer. So that's really good. Good for me.
Well, the science is inconclusive, Josh. We can come back to this one at a different time. I'm going to say the science is inconclusive, and I'm going to keep hammering my Coke Zero.
Do it
until my feet fall off or something. I don't know until we find out the long-term effects of it.
Cool. Well, I wish you luck. I will maybe go have a Diet Coke now to celebrate the end of another podcast. But thanks for joining me and us on this lovely adventure called Josh and Austin Figure It Out. Have a good day.
We're back on the mics in a while, in a long time, but it took us 45 minutes to warm up. We better just get out of here.
We microphone good. Well, okay. Have a great winter. Bye.